أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. In the last lecture of this brief introduction, the story of Musa alayhi salam can go on for, as you can imagine, with so much detail in the Quran, maybe for a long time. In this particular series, we are only discussing 4 talks. Today is the last one. And so we can only really talk about that part of his life where now he leaves Memphis, leaves Egypt, running for his life. And where does he come to? He comes to Madian. With his knowledge of geography that he had from his own travels and from his training in the courts, he knew that the nearest place where he would be out of the kingdom of Fir'aun and out of the authority of Fir'aun was Madian, and he knew the way to Madian, and he crossed it. So, crossing eastwards from Gulf of what is today Gulf of Suez through the Sinai Peninsula and what is the tip of Aqaba, and then entering into northwestern Hijaz where Madian was. So he's coming from, if you like, Africa into the Middle East through that area, and this was the closest he could be, the quickest he could get out of the kingdom on the ruling of Fir'aun. It took 9 days. It was a tough trip, and he used to hide in the day while he was still in Egypt lands and travel at night. Finally he reached Madian, exhausted, hungry, not sure what happens next. And again we pick up the story from Qasas, Surah Qasas. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ولما توجهوا تلقاء مدين قال عسى ربي أن يهديني سواء السبيل. When he reached the direction of Madian and he knew where he was going, he said, maybe my Lord will guide me to the right path. Means here to the path of what happens in the next few years. Where is my life going now? And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide me in that. And when he came, the next verse says, to Madian, of course he found a group of people. They were shepherds. They were watering their flocks. And interestingly, he said, وَوَجَدَ مِن دُونِهِمْ إِمْرَأَتَيْن that tazudan. He also found a couple of girls, but they were hanging back. They were waiting, not going with their animals. So he asked them, قَالَ مَا خَطْبُكُمَا, why are you here? What is your story? They said, we cannot go towards that well to feed our flocks because there are men there, and our father is very old and he cannot water the flocks. We have to do it. So we have to wait for these men to depart before we can go and also. Now there was another well, but it was covered apparently with a heavy rock. But Musa alayhi salam moved it and then used that for them to get the water out. And he said, I will help you. And he did that. So he watered the sheep for them. And when he'd done that, without a word, he just went back and sat under the shade of the tree where he was sitting. And he was at that time without many options. And this dua of his is very beautiful, which we are told to recite constantly. Rabbi inni lima anzalta ilayya min khairin faqir. Oh Allah, I am truly needy of any goodness that you can give me, at this moment in time. I am truly needy of it. Oh, one of the girls came back after a while. The next verse, ayat 25, says that one of the girls came back to him and walking shyly. These were girls who were trained well in akhlaq, and she was looking down bashfully. She said to him that قالت Inna abi yad'uk, my father invites you to come back with us so that he can reward you for your favor in watering our animals. He comes with him because he has no options. He comes with her. فَلَمَّا جَاءَهُ وَقَصَّ. There's a lot of qasas in this surah. When he comes, and of course this is the great prophet of God, Shu'aib. the Prophet of Allah to the people of Madian was Nabi Shu'aib, and the father-in-law of Musa alayhi salam to be. When he came, فَلَمَّا جَاءَهُ وَقَصَّ عَلَيْهِ الْقَصَص, when he related to him the whole story, قَالَ لَا تَخَافْ. Shu'aib reassured the young man, said, don't be afraid. Okay, Fir'aun can't get you here. نَجَوْتَ مِنَ الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ. You are secure from the oppressors. They can't get you here. This is not their land. Okay, and the people will protect you from anything that Fir'aun can do here. Now, in Musa, and the reason for calling Musa alayhi salam was because when the girls described to him what had happened, Shu'aib knew that he was getting older and he was not able to work the land. His daughters were not married, and Madian wasn't a place where he perhaps would have got a good son-in-law easily. When he heard all this, a man who had helped them, who had not asked for anything from them, he was curious to see if this could be a person who could be part of their family. And of course, when he met him, recognizing him as a man of God, as he himself was, he knew that he could not let him go. So he said to him that I desire to marry you to one of my daughters. Any of these two daughters you may choose to them. But before that, as he was talking and saying, one of the girls also suggested, Safura, the wife of, who was going to be the wife of Musa alayhi salam. She said, قالت إحداهما يا أبتي استأجره. Hire him. Why? إن خير من استأجرت القوي الأمين. The best person you could hire is someone who is strong. She knew he was strong because he had lifted the rock from the other well that the other people had not lifted because they found it difficult to move it. He had moved that rock. That is one reason. He's strong. Well, I mean, it's interesting that she also said, and he is loyal, he is faithful, trustworthy. The reason he's trustworthy, we have in hadith that when she said, follow me to my father, he said, it will not be appropriate if I follow you. In the sense that I watch your form move in front of me. What you do is, I will walk in the front and you take pebbles and cast them in that direction in which you want me to go, so that I do not look at you as you walk. She found that fascinating. She found that something of deep akhlaq. And of course, he was Musa alayhi salam's akhlaq was impeccable. So she encouraged her father, and indeed he also said to Musa alayhi salam, choose one of my daughters. And he chose this same daughter. Right? He chose Safura, who had come for him to marry. And Musa alayhi salam was told that, look, I marry my daughter to you, one of my daughters whom you may choose, whichever one to you, on the condition that you serve me for 8 years. But if you complete 10, then that's up to you. You may do that. And I don't wish to be hard on you, and you will find me from the right years. So Musa alayhi salam, for him, this was a great offer. An offer to be part of a household in which he already knew that his father-in-law to be was a prophet of God. And he would have a wife. But, in Memphis, he could never have found a woman with that kind of purity that he found in Safura. These were women who were part of the royal court. They did not have religion. Right? They did not have anything but worldliness. That was their entire, life. In Gushin as well, it would have been difficult to find someone who married him just for himself. But here, he finds that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him all these things. And indeed, those 10 years, he said, it's interesting, he says to his Shu'aib that, look, let this be an agreement between you and me, but whichever term I choose, I don't want to commit now. This is a lesson as well. This is a lesson as well that, sometimes we commit too much and then we are not able to follow through and we disappoint the people we promised to. It would be better if we had not committed so much, or it is better if we had waited. You know, Amirul Mu'mineen says that don't threaten someone when you're angry, and don't promise someone when you're happy, because in both these cases you will regret it later on. You know, when we're angry, we say things we don't mean. We threaten and we make threats. Later on, we regret those words. And when we are happy, we're ready to promise the earth. But when it comes time to deliver them, and the happiness has become, a little bit less, we realize, oh goodness, we're not going to be able to do this. So he said Musa alayhi salam was extremely elated and happy with the offer he had been given and the chance of a life here, but he did not promise. What he said to him was that قَالَ ذَلِكَ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَكَ, this is between me and you, أَيَّمَا الْأَجْلَيْنِ قَضَيْتِ, which of the two time periods I end up doing, I will not commit to right now, and then whatever decision I make later on, فَلَا عُدْوَانَ عَلَيْهِ, whichever terms I fulfill, then I have done no wrong, because I don't promise from now. In this there is lesson as well. And there began for Musa alayhi salam, he gave 10 years, 10 comfortable, fruitful, happy years, and which he could never had in Memphis or in Gushi. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave it to him, and inshallah wa ta'ala, do we have time? Perhaps not. I mean, I know that I was scheduled to speak with you for 20 minutes. So all told 80 minutes, and I think I have exceeded that. So today's one will be a little bit shorter. The story of Musa alayhi salam, it's no coincidence that he is so frequently mentioned. The main non-Muslim audience in Medina, where most of these surahs were revealed, was of course Jews. Now, the last thing I want to talk about for the last couple of minutes is that the Quran in these stories presents, it's like different cameras on the same event. And these different cameras, they elicit more detail than you would from just one angle. You know, like when you see a football goal, they will show it from, the angle of the players, they will show it from the angle of the goalkeeper, they may show it from a side angle. Each time you're seeing the same goal, but you're getting more information perhaps, and you're seeing details that you couldn't from that particular angle. This is another thing that I want to just briefly point out in the stories of Musa alayhi salam. So, for example, when Musa left Madian alayhi salam to go back to Egypt, they were in a snowstorm. He was, of course, now living with Safura, his wife, and they had a child. She was pregnant, and they had some animals that Nabi Shuaib had given as a gift, as his sort of like something to start him off in the new land he was going back to. So he had all this with him. It was bitterly cold. It was a blizzard. And this is the moment where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now was going to appoint him as his messenger. All right. So look at all these cameras, if you like, are now arrayed. And I just want to show you that. So we take up the story in Surah An-Naml first. Surah An-Naml is 27th surah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إذ قال موسى لأهله إني آنست نارا. When Musa said to his family, I see a fire, because it's so cold, that سيأتيكم minha بخبر, let me go there, because they were lost, kind of didn't know where to go. It was dark, it was very cold. Let me go there to get some news. أو آتيكم بشهاب, or I bring back at least some fire from that fire, so that we can get warm here. Right? So you wait here. Let me go and get that fire. لعلكم تَصْطَلُونَ, so that you may warm yourselves. فَلَمَّا جَاءَهَا نُودِيَ أَنْ بُورِكَ مَنْ فِي النَّارِ وَمَنْ حَوْلَهَا وَسُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. So when he came to it, he heard a voice from that fire saying, "Blessed is whoever is in the fire and above it, and glory is to Allah, the Lord of the worlds." And then a voice came, "Ya Musa, inni ana Allahul Azizul Hakim." O Musa, I am Allah, the mighty and the Lord of the worlds, the mighty and the wise. And then he's told, "Wa alqi asak." There was a stick. He had sheep with him, so he was using the stick for the sheep. Throw down yours, cast down that stick of yours, the staff you've got. فَلَمَّا رَآهَا تَحْتَزُّ كَأَنَّهُ جَانٌ. It was, when he looked at the stick, the staff on the ground, it was wriggling as if it was a snake, and Musa was really taken aback. I mean, the Quran says that وَلَّا مُدْبِرًا, he turned back to run. وَلَمْ يُعَقِّبْ, and didn't even look back. He just ran. I mean, a snake behind him. How did this happen? Immediately the voice came back, "Ya Musa la takhaf." Musa, don't be frightened. Inni la yakhafu ladayya al-mursal. In front of me, my prophets, my messengers are not frightened. That means now I'm making you messenger, and it does not befit you to be frightened. Snake or whatever you see. So this is a view of what happens. Now, when we go to, for example, Surah Taha, the 20th surah, our other camera switches on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in ayat number 9, "Hal ataka hadithu Musa." Have you heard about the story of Musa reached you? What? Ayat number 10, "Idh ra'a naran." When he saw a fire. فَقَالَ لِأَهْلِهِ, he said to his wife, "Umkuthu, stay here. Inni anastu naran, I see a fire. La'alli atikum minha biqabasin. Let me go and see if I can bring from there a burning fire, a burning coal." So we don't have fire here, something burning, so we can warm ourselves. أَوْ أَجِدُ عَلَى النَّارِ هُدَى, or I can get some guidance at the fire. Somebody who's there can guide me because we are lost. فَلَمَّا أَتَاهَا نُودِيَ يَا مُوسَى. When he came closer, we called out, "O Musa, إِنِّي أَنَا رَبُّكَ." There it was, "Inni ana Allah." "Inni ana rabbuk." I am your Lord. فَخْلَعْنَا عَلَيْكَ. Take off your slippers. إِنَّكَ بِالْوَادِ الْمُقَدَّسِ طُوَى. You have reached the sacred valley of Tuwa. So don't keep your slippers on. And then he's given the news. وَأَنَا أَخْتَرْتُكَ. I now appoint you. فَاسْتَمِعْ لِمَا يُوحَى. So listen to what is being sent down as wahi to you. I've chosen you now. I've appointed you to a mission. And إِنِّي أَنَا اللَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنَا. I am Allah, there is no God but me. فَاعْبُدْنِي. So serve me. وَأَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ لِلذِّكْرِ. And establish prayer for my remembrance. Now, camera number 3. We move to, for example, where is it? We move to Qasas, the surah we have been using all the time. So you saw Naml and you saw Taha. We move to Qasas and we finish with Qasas. So in Qasas says that وَلَمَّا قَضَى مُوسَى الْعَجَلَ. When Musa finished his term of 10 years, وَسَارَ بِأَهْلِهِ, and then left with his family. It was obviously dark and they were lost. Then آنَسَ مِنْ جَانِبِ الطُّورِ. Next to the mountain, he saw a fire. Naran. قال لأهله. He said to his wife, "Umkuthu inni anastu naran." Wait here, I see a fire. لَعَلِّي آتِيكُم مِّنْهَا بِخَبَرٍ. I might bring back some news. أو, here he uses جَذْوَةٍ مِّنَ النَّارِ. Or I will bring a brand of fire or a stick of fire. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَصْطَلُونَ. So that you may warm yourselves. And لَمَّا أَتَاهَا نُودِيَ مِنْ شَاطِ الْوَادِ الْأَيْمَنِ. When he came, we called out from the blessed side of the mountain, مِنْ بَقْعَةِ الْمُبَارَكَةِ مِنَ الشَّجَرَةِ, from a tree, أَنْ يَا مُوسَى إِنِّي أَنَا اللَّهُ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ. O Musa, I am Allah, the Lord of the universe. وَأَنْ أَلْقِ أَصَاكَ. Throw down your stick. فَلَمَّا رَآهَا تَحْتَزُّ كَأَنَّهَا جَانٌ. It began, when he looked at it, it was wriggling like a snake. وَلَّا مُدْبِرًا وَلَمْ يُعَقِّبْ. He wanted to run and not look back. Here, Allah tells him, Ya Musa aqbil. There he had told him, it doesn't suit you to be afraid in front of your Lord. Here he says to him, O Musa, come close. وَلَا تَخَفْ, and don't be afraid. إِنَّكَ مِنَ الْآمِنِينَ, you are safe. And then Musa alayhi salam says to him, Allah says, I want you to go to Fir'aun and I want you to preach the mission. And Musa says to him, Ya قَالَ رَبِّي إِنِّي قَتَلْتُ مِنْهُمْ نَفْسًا. I have killed one of them. فَأَخَافُ أَنْ يَقْتُلُونَ. I am afraid they would kill me. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that never. We are with you, hearing and listening. What I want to say is that this is the beauty of course, it doesn't mean that the Quran is contradicting itself. It may be that all these things did happen, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said everything that He said in these different places. That Inni ana Allah Rabbul Alameen, Inni ana Rabbuk, Dhu'na alayk. He could have been saying all these different things, but it actually together, when you put them on, the whole mosaic comes forward. And this is the beauty of storytelling, actually, that it both excites the curiosity and makes a person want to know more about the story, as well as it imparts lessons that you remember for a long time, because you remember the story. The lessons that are imparted also are remembered. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to study the Quran and its stories and its parables and take lessons from them, inshallah wa ta'ala. Again, my timing has been a little bit longer than I should have, than was accepted. Please forgive me for that. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this month a blessed, successful month of fasting for us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.